Have you ever noticed that when you read any gardening books or you listen to any gardening experts, they tell you the first thing you need to do before you dig hole one in your yard is to get a soil test? Well, I don't know how long it takes my county ag to get back a soil test, but if you just want to put in a couple of tomatoes, maybe you don't want to go through all that trouble and the wait. You just want to find out if you've got good soil right now. The folks at IRTOV sent me this cool little gadget. It's a 4-in-1 soil tester. It measures sunlight, soil temperature, soil moisture, and pH. Even better. No more waiting for pH. Acidic soil, alkaline soil, sweet, sour, what have you got? Your plants have a preference. You want to know what your soil is. The first thing I'm going to do is find out if these little squash plants I planted out here are getting enough light and water where they are, because I live in Florida. It's always hot and sunny, and the sun is absolutely will fry you. Our UV, we get UV alert rates off the chart every freaking day, and that's in the winter. So I'm going to check out this little squash plant I just stuck in here, and I want to see if it's getting enough rain and enough sunlight here. So I just stick it in the soil. It's getting plenty of light, so I can stop worrying that I put this plant in too much shade for it to grow. Now, what I mean by the sun being hot and burning is sometimes here in Florida, you've got to plant in the shade. If you don't, you will get fried little plants. But look, sun, high, level 6.8. Now the question is because it's also in some shade, is it getting enough water? Is it getting enough rain? So what I want to do is check and see if it's getting enough moisture. And it says it is. It's getting plenty of rain and plenty of light here. So I can stop worrying about that. Not only that, but the soil temperature is 82 degrees, which is just fabulous. And yeah, I know it's mid-September, but this is Florida. So I'm going to check a few other plants. Now this part of my garden grows in really full. There's a lot of tree cover. There's a lot of banana plants. That's the Barbados cherry. And this area is super shady. As a matter of fact, I've got nursery cuttings growing under there because it stays moist and shady, because you don't want cuttings in too much sun and you don't want them to dry out. But I also have more squash plants. I am determined to master squash plants. My neighbor seems to be sawing something. Not surprised. But these little squash plants, I just planted them out, and I'm really worried they're not going to get enough sunlight to thrive, so I'm going to check that out. You just turn this on. It's pretty easy to use once you figure out how to get the batteries in, which is also pretty easy, and you just stick it in the ground. And I'm going to put it near the roots of this squash plant, and it looks like, if you can see that, there we go, sunlight is high, so I don't have to worry about these things not getting enough sunlight to thrive. However, they aren't getting enough rain. This is really sandy soil here, so it looks like I need to get to the rain barrel and water my little squash plants. But that's a real relief. I don't have to worry about cutting back the canopy. I don't have to worry about, are they getting enough light? And I'm gonna go get a water can. Just a side note, totally, I planted cowpeas in here as a cover crop, and I have a hard time killing perfectly healthy plants. See, with cover crops, you're supposed to let them grow, get them to the point where they're flowering. See, they're starting to flower. Look, I even got cowpeas. I don't know why they're called cowpeas, but they are. And they're a hot weather shelling type pea that are really nutritious, and they're really good for the soil because they're legumes. But normally I put in a cover crop here in the summer, and then I mow it all down and put in my sauce tomatoes. But now I'm like, I kind of like cowpeas. I think they go really good with rice. And it is just so hard to kill perfectly healthy little plants. It just breaks my heart. Now this is a little gardenia that has failed to thrive consistently. And I've tried it in more sun, I've tried it in less sun, I've tried it wetter, I've tried it drier. And it's an acid-loving plant, and I keep adding fertilizer for acid-loving plants. I thought, well, maybe I'm just not doing enough. Well, I'm checking the pH. It's 6.5. It's slightly acidic. So I'm really not sure what to do. I've pulled it out, replaced all the potting soil, and I am just at my wit's end with this. But obviously, it's getting enough light, and it's slightly acidic soil. It seems to be getting enough moisture. So this little deal is going to save me a lot of trouble. I can check different parts of my yard for light, which is really my biggest concern, especially going into fall and going into winter, because the sun moves and it's really drastic here. Really huge changes. But and I have, in the summer I plant a lot in the shade, and then I worry all winter long if this stuff's getting enough light. Now this won't give you nutritional values of your soil, but most of us use either compost or some kind of basic fertilizer. So you definitely can figure out what kind of soil you've got. You can figure out what kind of light levels in the place that you're planting. And it's wet. I don't have to water here. That's awesome. Let me see what the pH is here. Now, this is going to take a minute because it is slow. Okay, that's weird. Why is my soil so acidic here? That's bizarre. I definitely need to figure out what's going on here. Now, these are peppers. I'm not exactly sure why my soil is so acidic. I solarized here. Yep, see, that's normal. Maybe I just stuck it into somewhere weird. Some kind of strange compost pocket. That's better. 7.2. That's kind of sweet. Not a problem with peppers. I don't have it memorized what kind of soil they like. Now that's really sweet. Okay, definitely need to do some work on that. Figure out what's going on. And here's another side note that you can see my cover crops have taken over everything. Yeah, I've got to bring myself to cut these guys back and compost them, or just, you know, eat lots of beans in the coming year. Very cool little device. Measures light, measures soil temperature. Very important if you're germinating now. If you got a fall garden and you're worried about soil temperatures being warm enough to germinate, or even too hot, like you're germinating lettuces. Lettuces do not like to germinate above 70 degrees. They'll do fine if they're plants and they're living out in the sun and living their best life if it's 80 degrees. But the seeds won't germinate unless it's 70 or below. So very useful tool for doing your fall planting. Light meter, you can check the light in your greenhouse, check the light wherever you're starting. Check the soil temperature, make sure it's moist enough, and make sure you got the right pH for the plant you're growing. This is going to come in super handy for me when I'm growing in the greenhouse in the fall and the summer, because the light is changing so much. My greenhouse is on the south side of my house, which means it gets a lot of light, but it also gets cut off really quickly in the winter. So I end up moving pots and plants around, and I was really worried that these little moringa trees are going to not get enough light to thrive, but it looks like I got high light. It's 87 degrees in here, which is very warm, and I can check and make sure that I'm keeping them watered enough. These are real high value plant, and I sell lots of them for a nice price in my nursery and online in my Etsy shop. And looks like these guys need some water. Let me check the pH. You know, I don't off the top of my head. Wonder if I've got it deep enough. These are very small pods. Alright, this is right now it's showing neutral. Very cool. But this is a huge relief, because I also have lots of house plants in here. And I do not want them getting high light. I want them getting moderate light. Still showing high. Alright, maybe these need a little more shade. I mean, they're doing okay. I don't know if you know this or not, but if you're into variegated houseplants, and a lot of people are into variegated houseplants, they actually will have better color and markings. And see, this is normal light. That's great. This is normal light. So it's sort of like bright indirect light. And they get better markings and colorings when they are in a little light, bright indirect light. You don't want them totally in the dark, because they're used to getting sun on the floor of the jungle. So yeah, I mean, I got lots of houseplants in here. They do not need that much light. So this is going to come in handy for making sure. It's a little, alright, one downside of this thing is it keeps reverting to Celsius temperature. And I can do metric in measurement, but I can't do metric in temperatures because, you know, I'm old and stupid. So that's pH. I have to keep putting it back to Fahrenheit. It always defaults to Celsius. It's the only really annoying thing about it. But, you know, I'm old. I'm a dinosaur. I will eventually die off. The metric will take over. Even temperature. Oh, there's the cat we don't own. It's a feral cat that's decided that we are its family. I'm going to be potting these up later today. I'm going to show you a trick with those later too. But right now, I want to talk about this cool gadget. Very neat, very cool. Get you one. Super useful tool. Super great tool. Lets you measure light exposure, soil temperature, soil moisture, and pH. Great price on this for everything it does. Now, it doesn't give you NPK, but hey, you can get your tomatoes in, you can get your seeds started while you wait to get your soil tested.